Hey everybody, welcome to Olympic Minds Leadership Beyond Limits. This is a podcast for the leaders of leaders, the visionaries. This is for those leaders who want to move from success to significance and from mediocrity to mastery. Hey, I'm Sherry Winn, two-time Olympian, national championship basketball coach, and CEO of the Winning Leadership Company. Today, my guest is Dean Sapp. He's the Chief Information Security Officer for Filevine. And I consider him a friend because we've had a couple of conversations. And what I love, listen, this is what I loved. I remember having a conversation about high-performing teams and some of the things that his company does for those high performers. And so we're going to talk about that today, as well as just any other thing that's going to help you become a leader of leaders. So, Dean, why don't you just tell the people out there a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks, Sherry, again for having me on the podcast. It's a real pleasure and treat. As you mentioned, I'm a cybersecurity nerd. I've been fighting the bad guys for over 25 years, and just love the ability to help get money back for people where they lost it from wire transfers or bank account fraud, elderly, sadly enough, elderly abuse. I even had someone in my neighborhood approached me just this week and said, hey, somebody hacked into my computer, accessed our bank accounts, emptied the bank accounts. We really need some help. And fortunately, we were able to get on the phone with the fraud departments from both banks and get the money moved back and get the computer cleaned up and the back doors removed. And so I have a passion, honestly, for helping people try to recover from some of these terrible events and get their identities back. And then, of course, I've been building the cybersecurity program at Filevine. We're a very cutting edge legal tech stack. So if you think of like what Salesforce is, sales professionals, Filevine is to lawyers and anyone in the legal space. And so we have a full suite of products. And of course, we'll probably talk a little bit about how AI is changing the game. But the beautiful thing about AI and the intersection with legal work is that if you think about documents that have been vetted and debated from two different sides and found to be, the best outcome, when you're comparing documents that have gone through that scrutiny, then you have you avoid the false positives or hallucinations with AI. So we're just doing some really exciting things, and grateful to be on the show and talk about leadership because it's something I have a passion for.
So I want to start. You just talked about like all the things you do with cybersecurity. It seems like there's more and more scammers out there. Like every single day, there are scammers. And so if you're just a small business person, right? So you got a small business, you don't have a massive business, but you're building your business. What is the number one thing you need to do to protect your company?
The single most effective control is turn on two-factor authentication. So a second factor can be a one-time token. It could be an SMS text message. It could be an email to your default account with a code in it. But NIST has recently come out with recommendations where they say, really, you want to use a one-time authentication app like Google Authenticator, Okta Authenticator, because those are less susceptible to things like SIM card swapping, right? Mm-hmm. Hackers will call on the phone to T-Mobile or Sprint or Verizon and act like they're you, and then they'll convince through social engineering the worker, the support person, to switch the phone number to their SIM card. So if you have really valuable data, and this actually happened to a client that hired me where their NFT wallet had been emptied. The hackers found their password on a password dump website, and then they used social engineering, called the telephone company, got them to send the SMS message to their phone, and they emptied the wallet. Over $1 million in assets were stolen very, very quickly. Fortunately, we were able to litigate, prove that the wallet company did not have secure practices, and we were able to get that person back the monetary value. Unfortunately, with like blockchain, crypto, you never actually get the original crypto coins, and sometimes you don't even get the assets back. but their value, you often can get the value back plus all of your legal fees and so forth. So two-factor authentication, or what's often called multi-factor, is the absolute best and most important control for a small business.
Wow. So how can you hunt somebody down? Let's say that somebody, or can you, because they can have all these different emails, they send them to different places, they have whatever. If somebody gets scammed, besides just getting the money back, can you actually find, is it difficult to trace somebody, or can you find that person, or do you just go, look, we're just going to try to get your money back and let's just call it quits? How hard is it to actually find the scammers?
That's a great question. It really depends. If you can track their source and all of their activities back to the United States, there's quite a bit that can be done. If they ended up popping from an IP address in the United States overseas, then it really just depends on the relations between the United States and that particular country. So it's very hard to tell for sure, but a lot of it also depends on the total losses that can be attributed back to the threat actor. Because if they've only stolen, a couple $100,000, candidly, the FBI doesn't have the resources to focus on it. They focus on crimes where the total losses exceed $1 million and go up from there. And even if you've only stolen $1 million, if you don't get too greedy, they frankly don't have the resources to dig in. And it kind of depends on the type of crime. It depends on if it's identity theft. It depends on if it's tied to trafficking or other laws or other criminal behavior. Then you have a little bit more capabilities to get assistance from three-letter agencies. Yeah. But my team, we've helped to track down people. We've helped to get things back. A lot of it, if it deals with moving money, so wires or EFTs or SWIFT transactions, then the banks are quite good at this. They have fraud departments, and you can call the recipient bank. You can with the phone, the fraud team on from the sending bank. You can give them all the transaction details, and often they will help you. And if they don't, then you go to IC3 and then IC3.gov, and then you create a ticket. And similar, the FBI can get involved if it's a large amount of money. And then once the FBI gets involved, then they'll have field offices around the world. And the criminals typically do this on a long weekend, a 3-day weekend, 4-day weekend. And so what they'll do is you'll work with IC3 and the FBI, and then you'll have investigators on the ground at the bank the next day they open, and then you're able to help reverse it. So long answer there, but it does depend on the loss and the type of activity. I have had clients where they were just being harassed over and over again from dozens and dozens of email addresses claiming all kinds of nefarious activity. So it was really embarrassing to the family, and they would target the daughters and the sons of the people and their coworkers. It was really, really quite nasty the way that the hackers were trying to extort money. And they did make a payment, and they just kept coming back to extort more and more and more. So the adage and the best advice here is don't ever pay, because you will keep paying.
Right. So that kind of gives me back to that ransom, right? So when somebody gets your company and they hold you for ransom. So, you also do things like that. Do you help people in that scenario where they say, if you don't pay us X amount of money, we're going to destroy your website, or we're going to destroy your company or whatever? Do you also?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we get involved in ransomware cases. On the side, I have a cybersecurity company that my wife and I run, IT Security Matters. Of course, I have to vet it with my employer and make sure there's no conflicts of interest. But we often will help folks that have been ransomed. Even the state of Nevada, just 2 weeks ago, the majority of the state's commercial or their offices, DMVs and whatnot, were completely shut down by a pretty widespread ransomware event. And so there are a lot of things you can do to prevent ransomware, having a good backup and making sure that backup is offline so that the bad actors can't compromise all of your network, and then go to your backup and destroy it as well. And so Filevine, we've built in about 3 or 4 different layers to prevent this. So we've had some clients where their office network, all of their computers, their backup machine, their backup server, all of it was ransomed. They couldn't access any of it. And I'm like, well, I'm really sorry that happened. But in over 30 of these cases, we said, just go pick up another laptop and you can connect to your Filevine stuff. Your data's all there. The bad guys try to get into it, but they can't because we have controls that prevent them from uploading ransomware. And so it's kind of been a great way to salvage a few of these firms. Literally, they told us we would have been out of business had we not moved into our platform. But they can build the same kind of controls in the cloud if they have savvy IT and security folks. The reality is most small businesses haven't been able to make that kind of an investment. Sure. And so they're being targeted across the board by bad actors.
Oh, wow. So how much is AI? So now AI is becoming a huge, if it's not a part of your company, you're in trouble because it is the future, right? And so how is AI impacting the good people? I mean, how can that help you, like right now, in terms of businesses, make sure they're protecting? Is there something they can do through AI? And how is AI helping the bad guys? So the criminals who are coming after you. I mean, there's no way when you look at AI that can be only used for good. I mean, as in anything that comes out, it can be used 2 ways. So what's the best positive way that companies can use AI right now to help them protect their company?
Yeah, so I would say that the best use cases for AI so far have been advanced detection of behavioral patterns and things. AI is very good if you train it on what an attack looks like. It's very good at finding other activities that look similar, right? So it is only as good as the model is specific to the purpose. So again, first thing to think about, very purpose-built models. And then making sure that you either have the data science chops in your company to train it or improve it, or if you're buying a product, that they have the chops to train it and improve it. Because, you can go on Hugging Face, and that's like an AI superstore. A lot of it's free, some of it's paywalled. There's over 1.2 million AI models on Hugging Face, and it grows every day. So that number even may be out of date.
Wow.
But by finding a purpose-built AI, then you can really it can benefit your business. So there's an AI model out there that we use, and it can vet over 120 IDs. So you can scan an ID with a very high resolution camera, and then it will compare it to IDs and what they should look like. And it will give you a quality factor and a likelihood factor that it was a fake ID, right? So seeing a very purpose-built ID, we do this for our immigration product because you have to verify that someone is who they say they are. And it's just added to our quiver of tools to make that immigration packet process much faster. But again, verifying who you are. So on the good side, it helps to build efficiencies. It helps your security team to take common tasks and figure out ways to automate them. And the other real benefit for us is we use it to help us write better code. Because a lot of the security team, we understand scripting, we understand Python, a lot of the programming languages tied to security tools. But sometimes we have to go help fix something that's in a .NET Stack app or something that's a JavaScript app. And that may be an area that we are not absolute experts. So then we work on, writing a little proof of concept set of code. We run it by an architect, someone who has tremendous experience. They vet it, and then we use it to help defend or to improve a weakness. But then at the same time, the hackers are so clever and they want to be efficient. And they want to get as many crypto coins that they can steal from people. And so AI has helped the hackers to write better emails, more grammatically accurate, more targeted, because they'll say, hey, AI, go build a profile about this particular person. Here's their LinkedIn profile. Here's all of the things we found online. Build a dossier about this person, and then use that dossier to go build credibility with an email. Having the right sender, knowing the right title, seeing what are some of the common transactions that have been posted online. Like my company today, we posted that we are now FedRAMP in process for one of our products. So if I was a hacker, I would likely take some of that brand new designation just came out today, and I would use it to target in a phishing campaign or a spear phishing campaign, going after a member of the board or someone else to try and trick them into clicking on a link that then installs malware on their computer. And now I've just popped a member of the board, right? Wow. So being aware that the attackers are using this technology. And then another one that I think has been in the news because of the sheer loss was an entire Zoom call that was built using deep fakes. They had deep faked the CEO, the CFO, one other person on the Zoom call. The only person that was real was the controller. Wow. And so he gets a Zoom invite from the CEO saying join immediately, and they had built enough sophistication in deepfake technology with facial recognition, voice recognition, and being able to match those enough that they convinced the finance person to send $25 million. Wow. So it's very real, and it's just getting a little worse each day because the AIs are getting better and better.
That's what I'm saying. So now you can have somebody do AI, right? And so they can take your whole look. They can now take your voice, and they can pretend like they're you. They're you. So how do we know the fake from the real? Because people can say, oh, this is our company, and they can build a website in literally minutes now, right? So if you go to their website looks real. They have real testimonies from real people, etc. How do you know what's real and what's fake? How do you get it that it's just so, I just think right now about people going on and saying things, right? And so we're all this division in our country. But how do you know that person's really saying that, right? Because the creation of what is real and what is not real, they're intersecting. So how do we know that? You just talked about the Zoom call. So how can we? Is there anything that we can see now, or is there anything that we can do to question that? How do we figure that out on our own, or is that impossible now?
No, it's definitely possible, because as much as AI is very creative, it doesn't have a awareness of perspective and really what is going to. I had the word, but I lost it. But the context. That's right. It doesn't have context. So I asked AI to create a slide for me a couple of days ago for a presentation I'm doing. It said, you know what? Create a slide that shows people, exiting a building safely, right? Well, it had some tables, and it had some people sitting in chairs, but the table was going through the person. And I'm like, that's going to be really awkward to remove. And, it's a context clue, right? Same thing with the spelling of names. Sometimes the spelling, or like emergency, sometimes they use different characters. Sometimes they use completely inappropriate spelling, incorrect spelling, right? So the spelling is a very common way. Shadowing, you can often tell when the shadowing is off. You also will notice that a lot of AI-generated images, they're very, concentric, or, they're the same. They look the same. And of course, the human body, we're out askew all over the place. It gives us a uniqueness, right? We are not a mirror image of our face or our bodies. We might have a shoulder out. There's just a lot of of different things that you can see that are common clues. Hey, this is a problem. But at the end of the day, the same rules that apply whenever you're moving a lot of money or you're dealing with anything that's valuable is you pick up the phone, you call the person, or you look for the same clues. Is there urgency involved? Okay, well, urgency is one of the things that hackers use to motivate people. Was I expecting this? Okay, if I wasn't expecting this, that's another context clue that says this
Right.
may be a problem. And then third, I would say businesses owe it to their employees to have a process, and the process is written that doesn't matter who calls you, can be the chairman of the board, doesn't matter. You stick to your process, and then you protect your people when they follow the process, because it is designed to prevent fraud at a large scale. So a lot of these time and tested methods are still effective. And I would say at the end of the day, you get an email you don't expect, or a link somebody sends you, or a text, call them directly, and call them with the number you already have, not anything provided in the message or the invite.
I get a lot of scams, like a lot of people wanting things from me, right? So, and what I've done is start asking deeper questions, right? So, because, they'll have, I don't know how many people, the last book that I wrote, were like, okay, we want to represent your book. I said, okay, so what do you like about the book? I go, look, if you haven't read the book, then don't talk to me. I don't even want to have a conversation. Like, if you don't even know what the book was about, like if you don't have a general sense of the book, or what you like most about the book, or can you give me one specific thing that you learned from the book, or can you? And they don't know, and I'm like, okay, well, guess what? The conversation's over. But we really want you. No, conversation's over, because if you are calling me, you should at least have some idea about what's going on. And the same thing I do just with anybody else is just start asking deeper questions. Because the original scammer, they don't have the depth of knowledge. And so if you can ask the deeper question, a lot of times you'll get to, like, they'll get mad at you and start calling you names. That's what happens.
Oh, totally. Well, two examples from that just recently. So we have a free trial. Well, we use a screening process that we outsource, and it's designed to find hackers, right? Because people have to give us a real bar number, they have to give us a real attorney name and a real business address and so forth, and then they can get access to our free trial. But then we monitor everything that goes on in that free trial, and so if 4 people are connecting in from different parts of the world and they're scanning the whole thing, we're like, hey, this is not normal, right? An attorney, they're going to come from either a Windows computer or a Mac, and predominantly a Windows computer, right? So when we see multiple Linux hosts that are connecting to our platform, and Linux is the predominant hacker platform. There's a lot of amazing tools with Samurai and some of these hacking distribution kits that are all designed to run on Linux. So we can tell when it's really hackers and not lawyers. And so we caught them. They still tried to buy the product. Very likely it was a stolen credit card. So we blocked them. And then the next day, like you said, hackers are a little vindictive. Then they tried to sign up as me. And of course, they gave a business address of like hackers.com. And I mean, we knew that we had caught them, and they knew that we had caught them. So it was just that whole idea of, oh, well, I'm going to stick it to the security folks and maybe tarnish their reputation a little bit. And of course, our team did a great job. They said, hey, Dean, you didn't happen to sign up for Filevine for free, did you? I'm like, nope, wasn't me. So anyway, so that's just an example of how, the bad guys and bad girls out there, they are crafty and they try to skirt the rules. And of course, they're violating the terms of the agreement. They don't care,
Yep.
right? They're just there to try and break in and steal stuff and turn it into money.
Right. And so I think one of the things you said is, like, if they send, like, I would ask for their address, because you can put their address through any of your AI tools that you have and say, is this a legitimate address? Right. Or you can put it through Manus, and you can say, because Manus is a deep thinker, and ask Manus, hey, I want you to go through, can you tell me if this is a legitimate business or not? Here's their address, here's what they say they are, here's a da-da-da. And Manus is really good about coming back. And of course, when I say this, it's like, oh, it's all this time. But if you put it into AI and ask a question, you ask the right question with the right prompt, you get a really good answer. And it's really minutes versus money, right? Minutes versus whatever it is. And it's now even to like any kind of Facebook ad, you get like, I just don't trust it. I don't trust any Facebook ad. So now I got to go and I take it in. Is this, or like I was going to buy a suitcase. And so I was like, well, is this a real suitcase company? Does it really, because you can't tell anymore by websites. You can't tell anymore by testimonials. You have to go and do a little bit deeper research before you invest any money. So, well, I wanted to ask you the question because we had talked about, all this cybersecurity and it's going to be more and more and more because more is, we're not going to get away from this, right? This has become with AI and it's going to be more and more and more. Everything is going to be generated, through the internet, through apps and systems and whatever. What I wanted to talk to you about is because one of the things that we talked when I interviewed you for my book on winning business secrets, I think, was we talked a little bit about some of the things that you do at your company to keep your high performers happy. Because what happens with companies is, there's two ways you can lose high performers. Really, literally, is they get so good that they're going to get a better title, a bigger, more money at another job. That's okay, because that's what you do is you grow your people so that they can excel. And if they want to leave, they can leave at some level. But the other thing you lose them is because you're just not paying attention to your high performers. You're not rewarding them. You're not doing the things to keep them to stay. You're not listening to them. So I know that we had talked and you had told me some of the things that your company does to reward the people. So tell us a little bit more about that.
I think that you've hit the nail on the head when it comes to high performers. A lot of times you really have to keep them challenged. They have to feel like they're really working hard on a big problem or a solution that's going to bring real value back to the company. I think that we find that there's a relationship to intelligence and the ability to focus. Like ADHD, there's a strong corollary between really bright folks, but they can only pay attention for about 5 minutes. And so I've seen some of that, but really it just comes down to making sure, like you said, that they're heard when they have a suggestion or a problem or something that they feel is mission critical. Really, you have to hear them out. You have to understand the perspective. And then I would ask all of my direct reports, like, now you're king or queen for the day. What do you do about it? If this was your call, how do you go about managing it? How do you get budget? How do you build consensus across stakeholders, across departments? Really tell me how you would manage this. And of course, if it's a great idea, I pass it along to leadership, as my direct reports suggestion. I don't take any credit for their work because the whole idea as being a leader is to ensure their success. But then I think another piece that you discussed, there is a carrot that happens that is an opportunity for a lot of big startups, and that's the E word, equity. Or that someone feels that the work that they are doing can build their personal equity in the company, right, the longer tenure you can expect for those professionals, right? The early Microsoft folks, the early Tesla folks, you name it, the folks that got in early and had an equity stake, if you look at their tenure versus employees hired later in the company's history, you typically have a higher correlation of longevity for the employees. So I think making sure that they have an equity stake. And even if that equity stake, maybe you're already public and you can only limit the number of grants or stock options that you can actually give to an employee, there are other ways, performance bonuses, other things. And I like to have my teams come up with what are their goals, right? I have some things that I think are important to measure, but really I want to know from each subject matter expert, how should I measure the success of your position? Because when I go for merit increases or additional stock grants or things like that, I want them to set and establish the level of performance that is reasonable. And of course, if I disagree with them, I might say, hey, I think you're sandbagging there a little bit, right? Or maybe I try and make sure it's realistic. Because if the goal isn't realistic, then they're just going to feel defeated. And
Right.
you never want your top performers to feel that way. You want them to be engaged, to see the value. And then again, I love public praise and private reprimand. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to step on other people's toes where we were perhaps insensitive. We're going to do things that could be blockers to our growth.
Right.
And I feel very, very prominently and strongly that public praise, and then when there's a problem, you and I are going to talk and we're going to understand it. And I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm sort of an old school, Covey guy, 7 Habits. I'm like,
Love it.
tell me more. Tell me what your thought process was. Help me understand the situation, because
Right.
I absolutely hate it when folks come in hot to me about a problem I may not even know about. Right? It may be something that happened over the weekend. A couple people were chatting in a private Slack channel, and next thing you know, the CEO is bearing down, and he hasn't even told you why he's coming down on you. I've actually had that happen, and it's not fun.
Nope.
And so I have made a goal in my career to never do that to a subordinate. My first goal is, let's find out what's really happening. Let's get the facts and make sure that the person I'm talking to even knows why this is a problem. Because often we're moving so fast. I joke that Filevine is an absolute rocket ship. And because of the velocity comes the terminal ballistics of something blowing up, right? You can go to a fireball really, really quick. And of course, anybody who's seen SpaceX or anyone who's trying to build a rocket, it's very, very hard.
Well, it seems like you really understand, like, there's two things going on. And I think that people have to understand, like, we're going toward this AI, more driven economy, more driven and companies, whatever, and there's still people. Like, we can't forget the people portion, because in AI, I don't know, I was talking to a guy the other day, he goes like, well, AI, they're going to become really real. We're going to have robots doing things and whatever. And he goes, I don't want them to be mad at me, so I'm always saying thank you, and you're amazing, and I think you're really brilliant. And he goes, because I don't want anybody to be mad at me. But the other part of that is there's still humans involved, right? And so we have to remember that humans have needs for validation. And so when you're talking about the way that you're talking to your people, it's validating them. So when you're asking them a question, it's validating. When you're disciplining, it's validating. When you are rewarding, that's a validation. And so, even though we're going to go more and more to this, like, kind of like interaction between machines and human, it's going to be more and more and more. We still have to remember there's still human-driven ideas and concepts and people. And so how we handle those people is really going to be the difference in who succeeds and who doesn't. We're still in that space until machines take us all over. We're still in that space that, people are very important. And, by rewarding them, by talking to them, by listening to them, by adding value to them, all that is the big difference maker. So, what's the big, like, when you're thinking about people and you're thinking about your teams in the past and individuals in the past, what do you think is the biggest reward that most people want? Is it really money, or is it just something different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to take sort of a philosophical approach on this one. At the end of the day, we need to recognize as managers that everyone has a battle they are fighting that we know nothing about. They may be struggling with addictions. They may be struggling with a relationship. They may not understand the things that they're supposed to do in their job, and they have, that fake syndrome or fraud syndrome where they're like, I don't even know why they hired me for this. This is too hard, right?
Yeah.
There you go. That's the right word, imposter syndrome, right? Everyone has a battle going on. They might have kids that are depressed. You might have kids that have taken their own lives. I've actually seen that. It's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And so I find that the people that have the most satisfaction working with me are ones where I've been through those battles with them. Mm-hmm. I had an exceptional boss, Michael Carter. He was a chief information security officer. I worked for him for 8 years at one of my jobs. Mm-hmm. And the thing I loved about Michael, not only was he absolutely brilliant, I mean, he was, Merit Scholar winner and just, did his postdoctorates with some of the most well-renowned researchers in his field, just a tremendous man. But the most important thing I took away from him is that he didn't care about anything but how you were doing. I mean, he was like, we would always chat, how's your family? How's your wife doing? Because at the time when I came to work for him, my wife had cancer. And the diagnosis was not that great, but fortunately turned out extremely well, right? How are your kids handling the transition of moving to a new state and a new city? He really, really cared. Wow. And it didn't. And again, he was always interested in what you've achieved, right? You had a chance to meet with the CISO and talk about the achievements, talk about the wins, the losses, but really the most important thing to him was how you were doing. And then we would get into the technical, or then we would get into the project planning or the security dashboard or whatever the project was that we were building. But it all came back to, I knew that this man legitimately cared for me. And honestly, I'll even use the word, he loved me. He loved my family. Right. And because of that love and acceptance, I busted my butt for 8 years at that company doing things that they had never done before because I was personally validated and cared for in a totally appropriate way that was just empowering. Right. And so I would say, and I'm, most people may not say this is appropriate, but I love my employees. I literally do. I care about them. They're successful.
No, I think that what you're saying is love in terms of, it's not a romantic love. This is
exactly.
This is a compassionate feeling that you have for them, that you want to see them successful, that you want to see them, happy. I mean, it's when you say love, I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, this is the kind of love we're talking about. And so if somebody thinks it's inappropriate, it's because they're not in the same framework that we are. But because people really look, as you mentioned, we're all going through something. And it's part of the human pathway, it's part of the human experience. We're all going to get ill, we're all going to have an injury, we're all going to be abandoned, we're all going to be betrayed. This is the human experience. There's no pass through the human experience. And so just because it's a work scenario, and we got to remember that people spend about 1/3 of their life, right, at work. So 1/3 of every day, 1/3 is spent at work, at least 1/3, if not more. 1/3 is spent at work, and then 1/3 is spent, doing everything we have to do. 1/3 is spent sleeping. That 1/3 of their life is there. And so if they don't feel connection, if they don't feel like that validation or that value at work, it's very hard to commit to doing more for somebody. It's almost impossible because you do not, if they don't care about you, you don't care about them. And so it's easier to give yourself rationalization for, I don't have to do that, so what, they asked me to do it, or I can cheat a little bit on this, or, whatever it is. But once that care and compassion is established, it's a whole different relationship. That is to me, that's what work should be about. It's just an extension, not necessarily of a family, because you're not really family at that level of connection, but you are very, very close friends, right? I mean, it's not the friends that you go out with and go drinking, partying, but it's the friendship, the acquaintances that are at work that really make a difference. Yeah. So,
if that's okay, I'd just like to say it really is like a high-performing sports team.
Yes.
Right? You love your players. You demand and expect the best performance from them. But at the end of the day, they're human. They're not machines. They're not mechanical. And they have stuff going on. And that stuff is real. Right. And they may not be able to focus. They may not be able to perform for periods of time because of different emotional or physiological issues that are very, very real. And so it's all about high performance teams. And there's several really good books I've read about that. No Rules from Reed Hastings about Netflix and in the early days, and just the whole idea that you are a high performance team. And unfortunately, when someone's not performing and the team's being dragged down, sometimes you have to let them go. But you let them go with compassion. You let them go with a path to help them improve, to know what was wrong, where they were failing. And of course, I believe in giving folks a little time to remediate. But more often than not, the remediation has never led to the kind of change. And so I would say that my CEO, Ryan Anderson, he is incredibly decisive, and he is a fast hire, fast fire kind of person. And I can appreciate that, because oftentimes your gut's right when you get a feel for a player or for a team member. And so you have to be aware that sometimes that is the best outcome. And I recently terminated an employee that I had been trying to coach for probably a year. And it wasn't, I didn't want to do it, but it was the right thing. And then he ended up getting another job that was a better fit. It was better for his family. It was a shorter commute and more money. So at the end of the day, I do like to follow up and make sure that they get placed, or they have some good warm leads to go to, and that they're doing well, because I do sincerely care. But really, sometimes you're just on the wrong team, and you just helping them to find the right team is the job of a good leader.
Absolutely. So Dean, if somebody has a question about cybersecurity, they would find you on LinkedIn. Is that the best way for them to contact you, or where else?
Yeah. So LinkedIn, I also recently, using AI, and a buddy of mine created a website, firmsecuritymatters.com. It is part of my consulting work. I don't do a lot of it, just special projects as long as I get sign off from my supervisor and CEO, usually helping firms that have been breached, and they just need to know what to do, or people that have lost a lot of money. But Firm Security Matters sort of play on words with lawyers, because most of the work I do is with the law firms, and just trying to help where I can. And I enjoy doing things like speaking in trials as an expert witness and other things. Sometimes I don't enjoy that because I get the other counselors yelling at me. But the general rule is, if opposing counsel is screaming at you, you've probably done a good job. So just something to remember. But, who likes to be screamed at for 3 hours?
Right. Well, this has been amazing. I think there's a lot of material out there for people to listen to around cybersecurity, and also just about creating and building good teams. So everybody, hey, if you love this, please subscribe. We really appreciate you listening to Olympic Minds Leadership Beyond Limits, and have a winning day. Bye now.
Bye-bye.